Right. Welcome to this edition of the People's Playbook podcast. We are pretty excited today. We have Lindsay Wilson with us from Molson Coors, who is the GM of sales in Ontario. And just her view on people and her view on teams and then driving people and just driving that culture is incredible. She is a veteran. And Lindsay, you don't look like a veteran because you don't show that in the years. But the years you've been in CPG and in the beer and alcohol industry have been incredible. And you've been there that long for a reason, obviously. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much, Jace. I'm so excited. Thrilled to be here. Big
Yeah,
fan.
it's exciting. So now you've just been appointed to the GM role of Ontario, correct?
I feel like I just have, but it's actually coming up on a year in
Wow.
December, which is
Is that not
wild.
crazy?
I know.
That's crazy. Yeah, it feels like yesterday when you were able to say that you took on that role and were able to lead this incredible team kind of to the next level. So just it's amazing when you say that how time flies, right?
It has, and the interesting thing, Jace, is like it's been such a journey, especially in Ontario with the open market, with the alcohol sales, and we've effectively tripled our field sales team this year and
Oh wow.
quadrupled our key account team for Ontario retail, which is just it's wild. It's just been such a journey. It's been such a blast, and so much has happened in almost a year.
Yeah, unreal. So great. Hey, great way to start the show because you and your industry and your company has gone through
Mhm.
incredible amounts of change, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And with change, there's always that uncertainty that people feel, that anxious little knot in their stomach, and they're thinking, okay, the industry's changed or this condition's changed, and what are we going to do? How do you
Right.
manage people through that change and that growth and things that are
Yeah.
actually, Lindsay, beyond their control? They don't have any government control that,
Yeah.
here's what we decided to do in the
Right.
industry, right? How do you manage them through that?
Well, first off, I think, it's just the mindset, right? And going in with the proper mindset. And I've had some time to reflect on it. And I think like throughout my career, probably throughout your career too, Jace, you've had a seasoned sales career. Like there was probably a time at the beginning where you're going towards this utopia of like if I get here everything's going to be great, or if we cross this level everything's going to be great, right? Or if I can just get past this everything's going to be good. And I think like when you kind of have the maturity and you look at the whole picture, you understand there's always going to be something, right? Essentially, like you're always working towards something. There's always going to be that next challenge that you're cycling against. Really, really interesting. I had somebody introduce me to VUCA the other day. Have you ever heard about VUCA?
No, tell me about it.
Okay. So VUCA is essentially a framework of building kind of muscle on your team, but you have to go through VUCA, right? And
Okay.
VUCA is essentially the storm. You got to go through the storm to build the VUCA, right?
Okay.
So essentially, teams that go through volatility, which again, every team goes through, then on the other side of it, they come out with vision, right? And then teams that have uncertainty, essentially, they have understanding, right? So it's really easy.
Yeah.
Complexity. So teams that go through that complex situations or team, whether it be like within an industry or within a team or company, you come out with this immaculate clarity, right? And then of course ambiguity, which every team faces, and we've really gone through this year. You come out, and this is my favorite one with agility, right? And so teams that have gone through those storms, they build the VUCA. It's in like Harvard books, and there's this whole framework. But it really resonated to me because you have to go through the storm to get out the other side and be stronger as a team.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's and I talk about that with leaders all the time. It's amazing how much tighter as a team you get and how you realize things you didn't think you had when you go through storms like that. Right?
Yeah.
You didn't think you were going to go through this storm and I'm sure that you've just become tighter as a team and you've probably seen things in each of your team that you thought, wow, I didn't know that person had that.
I look at my team in amazement every single day, and I feel so lucky to be beside them and honestly and leading them, but beside them because every single day we jump into really complex things and say, okay, how are we going to get out the other side? And I keep saying we're building VUCA, guys. This is good because once we have that, we're going to know what to do in next year and years beyond, right? So yeah, feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's amazing because change is always going to happen, and you mentioned something there that's the finish line always moves, right? What
Yeah,
once you work on something else comes through, right?
so true, so true.
How do you drive team culture in times of change because everybody kind of thinks differently. Everybody has a different behavior, personality, and how do you just make sure, hey, we got you. Let's just do this together. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I knew a question like this, you'd probably ask something, and I've kind of like reflected on it. I think culture it's something we talk about all the time, right? But culture, if you talk about it too much, there's a danger in that. You have to do it. You got to do the culture, right? And I always say culture comes in different ways in different pieces. It's something our company focuses a lot on in building, and I think but it comes every day. I'll give you like a really perfect example. Ever since from years back, I have this thing called Friday Wins. And it's just, and it's just a chat. And it sounds so silly and it's hard to start up, right? Because people don't want to jump in the ring with, what did you win today? What happened? And
Yeah.
and originally when you start it, people are like, I've got a small win, I've got a little thing. And I'm like, throw it in the pot because we're celebrating everything that and what essentially that does is it builds momentum. And momentum for me, if you were to ask me the most important thing on a team building a culture is momentum. When people feel that, when people understand, okay, that person is digging in the corners for that win, that customer, then they get electrified. Yeah, I have something to share too. I did that, and that creates a culture of winning, and that creates a culture of momentum. And essentially, I think that's probably the best way to describe it, right? And then the only other thing I would say is as much as we spend the majority of our lives at work, we all work like crazy and we love what we do. We're all people, right? We all have lives and we all have families, and there's all so much in the background going on. And I think every leader that I have in respect acknowledges that you want to talk about it. That's a part of that's your life, right? And so again, don't be afraid to talk about your family and your life because that's a thing and that happens. I talk about my three boys all the time with pride
Yeah,
because yeah, that's a big part of my life as well.
for sure it is. Yeah, and it makes you come across very authentic and shows that you're not just a leader in the organization. You're a human being,
Yeah,
right? And you get up the same way everybody else gets up, and you go to bed the same way everybody else goes to bed at night as well, right?
absolutely.
I love how you talk about leadership and just culture because when I talk to many entrepreneurs, owners of companies, leaders like yourself, lots of time people mistake culture for this big statement on the wall. Like you walk
Yeah,
into the organization, there's this huge statement on the wall, and they think that's culture. That's what we strive for, and absolutely that is. Yeah, let's announce it loud and proud. Let's do that. But I like what you said about almost creating a playbook on that, right? And that's your Friday wins thing, right? That's just little wins along the way. That's stacking it up and
yeah,
making people say, "Hey, you know what? It might be a little win, but let's celebrate." And it also creates a competitive environment that, hey, you know what? I need to put a win on the board right now, and that's okay to have a competitive environment, right? That's how we win the game at the end of the day, right?
it is. You can, and it sounds. I think like again, not to double down on what you said, but sometimes culture can be like, oh my God, is the culture good? Is it bad? Like I'm like, just you have to do it. You have to live it. And you have to
Yeah,
go through it, and then you have to keep checking back with people, and just one of the best things that I love is a lot of my leaders on the team are just how we're feeling good. How are we feeling, right? And
yeah,
it's just such a daunting question. How are you feeling?
yeah,
When you ask somebody that, it kind of stops them because it's not like, what are your numbers? What's your performance? How are you feeling? Right.
yeah,
And if
yeah,
once you allow that to get into the room and people kind of can reflect on that,
yeah,
you really, you get it. You
yeah.
understand.
Yeah. What is the leadership style, or let's just say, let's say style? What is the leadership style that motivates, inspires you the most?
Yeah, I love, like, me. You know, I'm a bit quirky. I'm myself, right?
Yeah,
There's an authenticity. I love authentic leaders. I
yeah,
I love it. I love when people come out and in this day and age. And I had a coach one time tell me, there's risk in watching all these videos of Obama talking and like all these like crazy leaders because you want to become and be them, right?
yeah,
But don't do that. Be you. And every time you're you, people feel that. They feel your energy. They come out and they're like, yes, I feel this. And you own that energy. And I think, every great leader that I've ever had has been just them and they've owned their style. And then I mean, essentially every leader has to have a vision, right? And that's really important. Vision, and you want to be motivated by the vision, but the vision's is only as good if it's not passed to you, if you don't feel it, right? If it's not something that you can take and make your own vision, right? I always say that, like, if you have a strategy or a vision and you're standing up there presenting to a team and it stays there, then that's useless. But if people build on it and make it their own, then that's where the magic is, right?
Yeah, I love saying. I'm going to steal that from you. Own your own energy. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna steal that from you. You better trademark that because I might trademark
Never.
it myself if you don't. So it's that's excellent. I actually, I often say the day is how you create it, right? You can get up and say it's going to be a great day, or you can say, hey, it's going to get up and it's be a shitty day, right? And
Yeah.
you create kind of what that day looks like, and people see that in your energy, right? They know right away, hey, what's wrong? And it's okay to be sick once in a while and not be on your A game, but I always say don't be a cancer because we're going to have to cut you out then, right? So you need to make sure you
Yeah.
need to make sure that you're aware of that energy that you're displaying, right?
Yeah.
So
I
really,
love
really
that.
important. In a big company like Molson Coors, you deal
Mhm.
with loads of different departments. So we like to think, hey, it's all about sales or it's all about marketing or it's all about operations when we're leading those teams,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
how do you get people aligned on kind of what you're trying to do with your team based on them maybe having a bit of a different agenda in their day as well? How do you get that alignment?
I love that question. It's so funny. We've had so many new people starting at Molson Coors, with our growth. And I think what I constantly say, what's your best advice coming in? Get to
Mhm.
know everyone around the organization. It will make you stronger. It'll make you
Yeah,
stronger as an employee. It'll make you stronger as a contributor. It'll make you stronger as a person, right? Get to know their story, what
yeah,
motivates them, what gets them ticking.
yeah,
I feel so fortunate that I've been at the company in some capacity for 15 years plus, but I've literally worked in so many different departments as well of getting to know people, but also, like, within this role that I'm in now, bringing them into the party, right? And again, it feels people want to be brought in. They want to come and be part of the Friday Win Chat. they
yeah,
want they want to be part of it, and they're such contributors, right? Whether it's like, our operations people, our supply chain people, our revenue management, like, they're all part of it. They're so part of it, and they're so part of the story. But if you flip that around, it's making your team understand the importance of having that cross-functional team. And we don't function without them. They are an extension of our team, and they're part of our team, right? So kind of comes back to, you have a vision, you have a strategy, and you have to share it, and you have to make sure they're part of it, and then they understand as well.
yeah, yeah. Just include them, right? Ask questions, bring them into
Awesome.
the huddle almost,
Yeah.
right? They're part of the team, and I love your approach to that because sometimes as leaders, and I've been guilty of it, we can be selfish of our own team, right? And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
a protector. I like to
Yeah.
protect my team, and how dare you say that about my team, right? And when you actually just say, "Hey, we're an entire team." Sure, I'm managing a different team, right? But we are one team in totality.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to become a little vulnerable right now, and and I know I've looked back on some of the things I've done in my career as a leader, and I've got, oh, if I could do that over again, right?
Yes.
So if you look back at your leadership, because you've led a lot of teams, if you
Mhm.
look back at all your leadership and your teams, if you could go back and you say, hey, that is the one mistake I've learned from the most, what would that be?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think that it was earlier on in my career. I was in somewhat of like a channel development role.
Yep.
So channel role. And I I was I was I was working every hour of the day. I literally, I became, it was one of those situations where, and I thought that's what success was. I literally, I thought that. I was like, if people aren't here, and I think in the back of my head, I was like, if I'm not working all hours of the day online, available every single minute, I'm not succeeding. And innately, as a leader, I probably set that example for my team as well. Like, they were watching that and they're like, no weekends for Lynn's, right? Then somebody said to me, that's not great. You know, you need to set an example. You need to take vacation and you need to have boundaries, and because your team needs that. So,
Yeah. I-
and it was like one of those moments where I just was like, yeah, you're right. You know,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
And I was like, people are watching me and they're watching my lead, and it's super important. And I preach that, but I'm
Yeah.
not living that. So that was probably one of the biggest things that I learned as a leader earlier on in my career, that you set that example in all aspects of
Oh,
what
I
we're.
love that. And I actually, I'll add to that. You become a better leader when you take some time for yourself.
Yeah.
And, that famous saying, sharpen your saw, right? Take a little,
Mhm.
work out, get your mind time off, go for a walk,
Mhm.
spend some time with your family. Like that's important. And
Mhm.
you're so right. Cause I think when you were saying that, I was saying I made that mistake as well. And I used to think I need to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? And that's what good leaders do. And
Mhm.
it's not what good leaders do. It's
No.
not what good leaders do. Good leaders, because then I was forcing my team to say, wait, I have to be available 24/7 as well. And then the poor team could be, with their family. I'm sending an email and they think I better reply right away. Right.
Right.
So I had a great discussion with this, one of my C-suite that I deal with, and he has a great saying that resonated with me. He said, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. And he said, your work life balance is different than mine, and that's okay. Just give the permission to say, hey, if I'm that guy that emails you at 3 in the morning, you don't need to respond to me. You don't, right?
Yeah.
I'm just that guy that's had a thought in my head, and I emailed you, or whatnot. But please know, I do not expect you at 3:10 to email me back, or even at 6 a.m. or 7
Yeah.
a.m. when you get back. Get
Yeah.
to me when you can, right?
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
love that.
that's an excellent, excellent piece of advice. If if you're looking at your team and the teams you've led in the past, how do you
Mhm.
spot future leaders? What do you kind of look at, Linz, and say that's what I want, or that's what I see as a future in this organization?
Oh, I love that question, Jace. I love it. It's what I'm passionate about. I get so excited. I think, and really I do, because I think uh, there's so many, and you probably feel this way as well, but you remember the people who invested in you, right?
Oh
And who were
yes,
just like, who dug in and were like, I see that in Jace, and I
yeah,
do as well. And I take it very seriously, and just like developing our talent, making sure people have opportunities. They have, good PDPs, we call them, or plans, succession plans. I think for me, so I really like diverse teams. I like people who are good at different things, and I love giving them the opportunity to really flex what their strengths are. I love that. I think that when I look at these, the talent, and what gets me excited are people who are vulnerable and can ask for help and say, I don't know this. I'm not good at this. How do I get good at it? Like, how do I understand a P&L? Or, how do I dig into our sales operations, and have that they want to learn, right? And I always put Easter eggs all over the place. I always say, hey, who wants to do this project? Or hey, this is a really good development. Who is anyone interested in jumping in here?
yeah,
And I love people who put up their hand and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm in, and I love that, because I mean, there's no lack of things that we can take on, right? So yeah, I think the curiosity, the ambition to ask for more. And I have this thing where somebody told me, it's always been in my head, but like, act like the job that you want. Like, you do the job, and be the job that you want, in your daily day to day. And that's basically foreshadowing what you're going to be, right?
yes, yeah. It's manifesting. It's
Manifesting.
Yeah, I am a huge believer in that. And when you said that, and you're talking about just people that have invested in you, I had one leader that said to me once, two things stood out with this gentleman. He said, "Hey, Jason, I need help with this." He said, "I'm from a totally different department. I haven't been in sales before, and you know much more than me." And he says, he said, "I absolutely need you to help me get through this." And I was thinking, wow. Like, what a thing for he was a new leader in our organization. And I was thinking, that is incredible what he just said, right? And
Oh,
then he said, and I thought, that is so vulnerable what he said. He said, "Hey, I hope one day you'll be signing my expenses."
wow.
And I just thought to myself, like, that is a
Hmm.
total vulnerable, authentic leader. He came in and he said, listen, I have to, he went very high up in the organization. And he said, I have to check this box of sales, basically. I have to check the box that I've done it, right?
Yeah.
And he said, but here's the thing, it's not my background, it's not what I know,
Yeah.
right? But I have to get through it because I'm the kind of the next one who's going to be leading the organization. And I got to tell you, if you and
Yeah.
I had a conversation right now,
Yeah.
you look at me like, what the heck is this guy talking about? But I loved the fact he was vulnerable and he was authentic.
Yeah.
And it made me actually, Lindsay, it made me actually want to like go over and above for him to help him because he wasn't trying to be somebody he wasn't.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah.
think that's what it's all about, right? Like I think just like when leaders come in and they're authentically themselves and and like I said, we're all going to go through storms, but if and they have the ability to say, that was we're going through it right now. Everyone wants to jump on and be like, let's get at it, right? So I
Yeah.
think there's a strength there. And actually, one of my leaders always says, you can't sell beer without breaking a few cases.
Yeah.
So we're gonna like yeah.
That's great. That's great.
And I love it. And I always say, like, I always try to tell my team, like, we're going to make mistakes. Like, we will. And if we're not, we're probably a problem there, right? Like, we're probably not hustling hard enough if we're not making mistakes. But
Yeah.
here's my two things. If we're making mistakes, let's not make them again.
Yeah.
That's not good. That makes me, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
And then go fast, right? So if you're going to make a mistake, like, fix it fast. And those are
Fix.
the two rules of that. But it's inevitable, right?
Yeah. What so who do you go to when you're so as a leader, sometimes we
Mhm.
as much as we want to be vulnerable and we want to be authentic,
Mhm.
sometimes we have to I got to shield my team from this because if they see that from me right now, it's going to create a little chaos in the organization because they're going to be, oh, what are you talking about and whatnot. So how do you how do you ground yourself as a leader and who do you go to for just say, hey, help me out here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I have some mentors in place that I put in pretty early, and just like you're right. Sometimes you have to take it out and talk about problems on the side. I also, Jace, I'm so fortunate. My father is a distinguished businessman, sales leader. He worked for Xerox for I think like over 50 years or something to that capacity, and
Wow.
he's I love chatting with him because he is somebody who doesn't have the context. He doesn't know the people. He doesn't know the situation or like, the business situation. And I can take anything to him and we can work through a problem or an issue. He doesn't always tell me what I want either. Like he very, very well can be like, you know what, you got to fix that. You weren't right there. And I love that. You need that honesty. You need people to check you sometimes. And my father, he can check me pretty quickly for sure.
50
Yeah.
years with one company, he's
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
something right for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I love that you said you talk to your father or there's other people that you look at
Yeah.
as mentors because it's amazing how we realize our parents actually know some things or two once in a while, right?
Oh my
And
God.
when we're growing up, we think these guys are so out of touch. What the heck are they talking? And then one guy said to me, every year I get older, my parents get a little smarter, right? And it's true,
Yeah.
right? You kind of
Yeah.
think, that's what they were talking about in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
My dad always talked about Six Sigma and like just like all and in my head I was just like, okay, cool. And now I'm just there's such respect, right? Of, every such respect of all the positions and things that he did. And quite honestly, him and my mother, I look at them and the way that they both and my mother is a nurse and they both parented my brother and I was so important because that's a big part of my life as well. And
sure.
that's like as a woman in sales and in this industry, it's demanding and like, I always come back to what my parents were always there for the important occasions. They were always there to help when it mattered, and you can't be there for everything, but that's really important to me as well.
Absolutely. I think, and you just touched on it, a woman in sales and leadership. I love that because what your point was a little earlier is we need diverse teams. And I challenge companies when they
Mhm.
say, we have everybody in a leadership position. And I say, do you though? Right? You'll go to somebody who's a manufacturer and they'll say, yeah, we're diverse. And I'll look at the leadership table but there won't be a female at that leadership table. I talk to C-suite all the time and I say, we make better decisions when we have multiple people at the table, because the way I think about something is totally different than the way you think about something. And I'm not right or wrong, neither are you, but we'll come with a better decision for sure.
Yeah. I, I just, diverse teams, in my humble opinion, are the way to go. We recently have our first female president of Molson Coors.
That's fantastic. Is it the first?
First, yes, I believe for big beer, yes,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
which is amazing. And she's a weapon. She's awesome. And yeah, it's inspiring. It really is.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love it, but I also think, man, like why is she the first? It's 2025, so I'm so glad, good step. We have a female lead in a massive organization, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I hope it's a non-discussion like tomorrow. You know what I mean? Where we move so fast that it's not a, oh, we have this. It's just like, yeah, well, why wouldn't we? Right? As opposed to
Yeah.
a milestone, right? So
Right. Yeah.
Liz, if you look back and you've made some tough decisions throughout the years, how do you actually like? How do you? What are your values that guide you through those tough decisions?
Yeah. I think when looking at tough decisions, and this is something that I don't know, you never really hear, but there is instinct, right? Have a natural instinct as a leader,
Sure.
and instinct's really important, and you have to trust it, and you have to trust your gut initially. It seems so cliche to say that and so easy. Like there should be some like great answer, but your instinct is so important. And once you're able to check your instinct and trust yourself, and that's so important. And once you can really get a hold of that and not question yourself and ask a million other people the answer, you know the answer to that
Sure.
decision. Usually, sometimes, you bounce things off, or I'll go to my dad and say, hey, am I on the right path here? But 98% of the time, you usually know what the decision is, what the answer is, and you can talk yourself out of it, but you have to go back to, that initial instinct for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And do you still, because I know I do you still get that feeling in your gut when you have to tell the team what that tough decision is?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do, but it's interesting once you build a team that kind of trusts you. And I really genuinely feel like I have the best team. Like I really do. And it's
Yeah,
not just my team, like the supporting team as well. They trust you and they look at you and they want to help you and they want to dig in. And it's just, if you feel supported, then it feels better, right? But there's always tough decisions, things that you have to discuss. And there's also there's months when things aren't going your way, and then there's months that you're blowing it out of the water, right?
yeah,
And it's balance, and it's being able to um balance the highs and lows, and making sure that you're on this trajectory. And just keep saying, like, we've been through this before, guys. We have it. We've been through the storm. We built the boot, guy. We got this, right? We
yeah,
know what to do here. So yeah.
yeah. If I had to ask you what is your one leadership principle or value that's a non-negotiable, like you will not sway from it, what would that be for you?
I think likely being authentic, right? Just like it's my biggest thing. I want everyone to show up as themselves. I want people to talk in the room. I want people to have an opinion. I want to hear what other people are saying on my team. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what level you're at. I want to hear it. And I dig deep to try to make sure that I'm connecting with all levels of the organization, because that's where the magic is, really. You're sitting with a field sales rep and they can tell you so much. I always say, like, getting out into market, you learn so much, right? So just making sure that we're just having everyone show up as themselves and being comfortable to communicate and share is
Yeah,
super important.
I love that total team involvement. Listen, I've got one more question. You've been amazing with your time today, Lindsay. I know you're busy and you're not looking for things to do. That's for sure.
Love it.
So I want to close off with just one important question. If you're looking at young leaders today and you could give them one piece of advice to say, hey, you're just starting your career. Here's the one piece of leadership advice I would give you just to help you along the way. What would that piece of advice be?
I love that. I think say and this, I'm going to go a level deeper, Jason. I'm going to say to young women, because it's really important, because this is something for young women or women coming up in through the ranks of say yes to new opportunities. And I say that because there's this thing that with females sometimes that you have this self-talk and just I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, I'm not ready. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably I have some really important people in my life who check me all the time and say, you are, like, go for it, get that opportunity,
Yeah.
say yes and just go for it. And it's so important because I can think of times throughout my career where I said no and I was my biggest enemy. I'm not ready. I can't do this. And now I'm like, every time you do say yes, there's so much on the other side of it. And there's so much
Absolutely.
learning.
Yeah.
And really, like, you have to ask yourself, you have to do kind of that like equation of what's going to happen if you like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You're going to learn a lesson, you're going to understand
Yeah.
more, you're going to know yourself more, right? So that's my best piece of advice. I mean, young females not, but just sometimes I find females, they won't go, they won't put themselves out there. They just, I'm not ready, I can't do this, and just go do it. And yeah, you'll figure it out.
What an absolutely amazing piece of advice to share. Thanks for that. With that, I want to just, before I let you go, I want to say you've talked about authentic leadership. You've talked about being vulnerable, and I feel that that oozes out of you, Lindsay. So you're very authentic. It is obvious that you care. It comes across as very authentic, and it comes across as, hey, I just want what's right for my people, my team, and my company. So with that, Lindsay, I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks for coming on the podcast, and I look forward to all the interactions we have in the future.
Thanks, Jace. Such an honor. Keep doing. You're amazing. I love watching, and you're knocking it out of the park.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lindsay. If you loved that session and that conversation as much as I did, would love to have you join our People Playbook community in the link below.